So here we are with the deer cages, and for our specific deer cages that we put around all of our trees, whether they're natives, non-natives, fruit trees, we go to Texas Irrigation Supply and get their Regency wire 18 gauge 11.02 millimeter underground low energy circuit cable. What we found with this is it's very bendy, it's easy to manipulate. A lot of the other cables, if you're opening 80 cages in a day, by the end your hands are worked, your forearms are toast, and it's just not that pleasant. But this 18 gauge underground irrigation wire from Texas Irrigation Supply is very enjoyable, it's very flexible, and you'll see how we put it on later. So we're generally taking 20 inches. So we'll go ahead and just toss that out. 20-inch chunk here. And now we go ahead and have a, this is our guide wire. When you're doing a lot of these, 3 of these wires per cage for 80 cages, 80 times 3 is what? 240 pieces of wire, if my math is correct. Now you can either take each one and connect it like that. Takes a few seconds each wire, or you can just get yourself comfortable. Measure some part of your body. Okay, mine's my belt loop to the bottom of this pocket. And we're just gonna go belt loop to pocket, snip. Belt loop to pocket, snip. Belt loop to pocket, snip. And we're just gonna do this all day long until we have 240 of these pieces. Because when we're doing these cages and planting these trees, we're always trying to figure out economy of motion. What's the fastest way to do the thing that we're doing? Because everything that we're doing in repetition a lot, and the faster and more efficient that we can be at any part of it, the more money that we can save the client, the more money we could potentially make for ourselves, and the more benefit that we can have to those that we're building these systems for. So this is just the simple wire on tree cage. We'll show the rest of the tree cage assembly here shortly. Okay, welcome to deer cages and tree cages. Every time we plant a tree, whether it's a native, non-native, fruit-bearing tree here in Central Texas, we're always putting tree cages around them, unless there's a high fence or some larger fence structure to keep out animals and predation. This is the cheapest option that we found and the most reliable. We put a 15.5 foot long piece of fence wrapped into a circle, which makes about a 5 foot diameter for each tree. This specific type of fence is what we go with. It is it's a sheep and goat fence, and specifically it's this 10 to 12.5 gauge, height of 60 inches, length of 330 feet. If each fence is 15.5 feet long, we get 21 individual tree cages out of this. And we picked this up from Montopolis Supply in Austin, Texas. And it's about $430 per roll, which makes each fence about $20 per fence. We specifically use this one because it has 4-inch squares, so it's strong enough, it's durable enough that deer can't just push it, and the holes aren't large enough that they can stick their head through. So we're gonna go ahead and open this thing up and we'll get started. And if you're ordering this from Montopolis, the specific fence number is 1660, so 1660. So we're gonna go ahead and just push it out. Have a couple rocks staged so they'll hold the back of it. Ideally, you're gonna set this on the highest part of the property, closest to where you're gonna be using it, so you can just nudge the roll, rolls downhill, and it kind of self-manages itself. If you try to push this uphill, you're just gonna be doing a lot of effort and wasting a lot of time. So we're gonna go 15.5 feet. 15.5. 15.5 brings us kind of right in the middle of 2 squares. So we're gonna go ahead and go just a little bit high on this. So actually 15 feet, about 7.5 inches. And we're gonna clip it right there. Okay. And before you completely clip all of these, go ahead and take something else that's heavy and set it on top of that, so that once you clip it, it doesn't go rolling away and you have to chase it and restart this all day long. So having a handful of heavy objects, rocks, rock bars, something that will hold this down is going to be helpful. Okay. So you'll notice that this one is nice and clean. We cut these as close as possible to this. And however, this next fence has all of these. So you want to go ahead and actually remove those, because whoever is doing maintenance on this project in the years and months to come is going to be opening these tree cages and interacting with them. And they will greatly appreciate not being stabbed 100 times with all of these. So we're going to remove those so that we are ready for the next fence. Make sure we clean up our site so we're not getting flat tires in the future. The very first one of these fences always has a bit of this weird fence material that we just have to remove. It's helpful, instead of measuring each one of these with a measuring tape, you can just count the amount of squares and just make sure you have the amount of squares on each one and knock these out. So for this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 44, 45, 46, 47 squares is what we're going for each one of these. And while this is still being held down, we take our 18 gauge irrigation electrical wire. This is the easiest form that we've found to do this. We're going to bend this in half so that you have a bite. And we're going to do a little hitch to the very top. And then we're going to wrap these around each other. One. So that this is easier to open and close. And same thing, we're just going to bend this in half. Take that bite, stick it through, feed that through so we have a girth hitch. Wind them together. Okay, and top, middle, and bottom. Fold in half, feed it through. We have a nice girth hitch there, and we're going to wrap those around each other again. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and lift this up and assemble it. Okay. Now there are obviously 2 ways to put this together. If we put these on the outside, we're going to overlap by 2. It keeps this pretty close together. If we put this on the inside, sometimes the inside is better, so it looks like this one actually is going to work best to keep the tie on the inside. What I'm trying to determine is if we put it on the inside and this whole thing dimples like this, like more of a teardrop, then switch the placement and put this on the outside. In this case, if we attach it to the outside, it's gonna dimple like this. Have a bit more of like a heart-shaped situation going on here. It's not gonna look very symmetrical. It's not gonna have a continuous arch, like a circle that we're searching for. And animal livestock are just gonna be able to push this in and it's gonna collapse. So each fence is a little bit different, but on this one, we're gonna go ahead and put those ties on the inside, slide them to the very bottom, and then just wrap these up with 2 squares of overlap. Slide it to the bottom and wrap it up with 2 squares of overlap. Okay, all the way down to this. With either the top or bottom, I like, instead of just wrapping it around here, because if it's wrapped around, it can still slide like this. I'll go ahead and slide it down, wrap it underneath it to just hold it in place from a slightly different angle, and then just wrap it up. So then when you're done, it's not gonna slide up and down on you. It's not gonna open that way. You have a very stable cylinder that you can just carry over here. And when we're done with this, we can just plop it right on top of a tree. It's wide enough and strong enough that we don't need to use T-bar. T-post or rebar. Adding those together. And it's a pretty structurally sound situation to take care of each tree. If you have larger livestock like horses and cattle, you likely will need to put at least 2 T-posts on each side. If you have a whole lot of cattle, you're going to need to put 3 T-posts on each side, because they're going to try it and test it every possible way they can to get to that curious little plant inside of it that's green, since you have irrigated it so nicely. So that's our tree cage situation. Specific 4x4 fence from Montopoulos Supply, 60 inches tall. Do not get the 4-foot tall or the 48-inch tall, because it's just too short and deer can just reach right over and nibble the tops of your plants off as soon as they grow. The top disappears every couple weeks. Make sure you get that full 5-foot tall fence, 4-inch squares. If you can't find the 4-inch squares, you can just get the 2-inch by 4-inch. And whenever you need one area to be able to reach into harvest, you can just snip off a couple of these so that you can reach an arm through that 2-inch by 2-inch or 2-inch by 4-inch grid. So there you go. Here we go. 4, 4, 5, 6, 47. Okay. Coming up. Put on the inside. Put on the bottom, wrap it up. And last one, loop underneath it. Hold the vertical. And now wrap it up. And that's our 1 deer cage. And now we have a bit more to make.